Hi everybody, welcome back for another video. You know, it's that time of year when I start to reflect on this year, but also think about the year ahead. 2024 is coming up, and I want to think about compact, less lethal options that are out there. I'm not talking about large launchers that are, a little bit cartoonishly big. I'm talking about launchers that are actually concealable and something that you can carry on body. Are they actually functional? What's available at this point? I'm going to talk about 3 different examples and what I think is the future of concealable air-powered launchers. There is a lot of opportunity there, and I think that is the most interesting. Anyone can build a big rifled launcher these days. It's not hard to put together the pieces and put enough air through the system and get enough power. And if you want to use those for home defense or you want to use those as a truck gun, those work just fine. But where there's really a niche that needs to be filled is on-body carry for small, compact launchers. That's really where it's at. So while I'm in Florida and I'm at the lake and I'm reflecting here at home and I'm thinking about the future, let's have a conversation. I want to talk to you about the Byrna, the Grimburg Gavel, and then other options such as PepperBall TRP. They're just a couple options that we need to compare and contrast and really think about what we might hope to accomplish with each one in the future and where the future of each of these is headed in terms of future evolution. There's always a lot of hope and there's always a lot of hype. So my goal is to try to find some intermediate ground. And the first up is going to be Byrna, and we're going to talk about their small launchers, the Byrna model. So the first thing I got to say about Byrna is I believe that they are quite responsive to people's suggestions. People have repeatedly said they wanted smaller launchers, and that's what they are offering, and that's what they're trying to develop. The LE was an example where they went for more power, and that was in high demand. From the standard SD launcher, and I think that going from the 8 gram to the 12 gram CO2 was a good idea, and the LE they made some changes in the valve system in order to get a little more air and more power, and I think a lot of people are happy with that, and I think anything that you can do to increase the power and break the pepper balls more reliably I think is better. But smaller is really something that's always been in high demand, and they're developing a product, and there's a lot of pros and cons about this product, and you may be hearing it here for the first time. But in their corporate statements, they're telling their shareholders that they are working on a 61 caliber projectile launcher. Now that is smaller than the 68 caliber that we're used to, but you can see from the images here, it is considerably smaller, it is considerably more narrow, and that just is the perfect recipe for a more concealable, easy to carry, easy to draw weapon. It's easier to get a good grip on it very quickly and to draw it from a holster in a concealed condition. It's basically, to me, these images are very similar to the Glock 17 and the Glock 43X. That's exactly what I'm looking at on the firearm side, and I think here, looking at the standard Byrna and then the Byrna CL that they're developing, I think it's a really interesting idea. I don't think the power is going to be there for what people want. People want small and powerful, but I think as soon as you go smaller, you're going to lose power, but you're going to become more concealable and you'll be more likely to carry it. If it's easy to carry and it's small and it's not uncomfortable, you're more likely to carry it with you, and if you're more likely to have it on you, it's more likely to be useful for you, and that's my opinion on that. I believe that Byrna is on the right track. It would be really nice if they could increase the power through some other magic, but I don't know how much more you can do with CO2 in a compact system like this. You're very much limited by the physics, and the power that you're going to get is quite restricted. So, but this is a really interesting advance, and I really give them a lot of credit. I think Byrna is on the right track with these types of launchers because there is high consumer demand for these, no doubt about that. Okay, next up here is the Grimburg Gavel, and you know I like this one because this one was developed from the ground up for less lethal, very much like Byrna, but this one was developed for high power. It was essentially just made so that the airflow is unrestricted in any way. You're getting maximum power without any regulator, and it's going to be able to run a 12-gram CO2, even a 16-gram CO2 will fit. They've really done a lot of work also responding to the customer, making the design improved, putting it out there, doing iterations and making it better. There are limitations between this system and the Byrna system. There's no mag here, so you can't reload. You got your 5 shots and that's what you got. You don't have any more. I really don't think with a high-powered launcher, especially if you're using kinetic rounds or kinetic rounds with chemicals, that you're going to need more than 5 shots. You really need to use this as, I think of all of these types of launchers as distraction devices more than anything else. You're going to pull it. It needs to be concealable on body. You need to be able to pull it and fire on someone, create some distance, create a distraction so that you can get out of the situation. You're not going to take on someone and just continue to have a firefight with them. These are intended to be 1 or 2 shots and then you're getting out of there. You need a nice amount of power, but you don't need too much power. You need just enough that you stay legally wise. And it's also compact. I think it's really comparable to the Byrna LE in terms of size, but you still have to charge the CO2 by a twist. And I think in a one-handed situation, that's a big problem. Whereas the Byrna shines in that you can still draw it, you can still fire with one hand if you had to, and you don't have to take that extra second or two to do the twist. I personally don't think the twist is a problem for 99% of situations, but if you've got someone grabbing your off hand and you are able to pull your Grimburg Gavel, but you can't charge it, it's not doing you much good. You can't slap it on something to charge it either. You've got to do an actual twist. That requires a second hand no matter what. So in many situations, that's perfectly fine. And in situations where you have time to charge it before you go into a dangerous situation, that's perfectly fine. But it's on those rare occasions where you might be caught off guard and you need to draw it fast, that's where the twist is going to be problematic. So that's the only downside I can see of the Grimburg Gavel. It is a hard-hitting device, but the internals are designed to be strong steel, and they're not going to break on you, and that's one of the big advantages of the Gavel. And that's always one of the limitations of any paintball marker, because you're going to want to do mods and upgrades in your springs and your bolts, and everything is going to be have some vulnerability. This one is built like a tank, and I think that's a really good thing to know. Okay, so you might ask, well, what about the PepperBall TRP? That's the last of the 3 that we're going to talk about. This is, again, a different charging mechanism for the CO2. The Byrna uses the trigger, the Gavel uses a twist, and the TRP uses a bump. And I think I like this method a lot as well, because the bump is something that seems very practical. You can bump it on yourself, you can bump it on someone else, you can bump it on a wall. You can do that with one hand, and you can charge it. Size-wise, this is going to be very similar to your PepperBall TCP. I think they've done a little bit to narrow the grip because there is no longer the CO2 in the mag in the same way. So it's designed to be a little bit differently, and there's probably a little bit better grip there. But otherwise, I think across the top, your firing bolt and all the internals there are very similar to PepperBall TCP. When the TCP came out, there was a couple years before they finally started to release those to the civilian market. Well, the TRPs also is a very similar situation. Majority of these are going for law enforcement, and you get what you get. So they're not as abundantly available, and that's just the limitation of the PepperBall TRP. I really like the design. There's not a whole lot more to say about it. I think we're all very familiar with this platform. All right, so that's three different options, all CO2 powered. Now, CO2 is the one common theme here. With CO2, if you want to be compact and you want the launcher compact, you've got to go with a small CO2 and let that CO2 expand. But what about HPA? I mean, there are HPA powered pistols on the market right now. I find them extremely attractive. The HPA pistols, though, I have to say, are very large in comparison to some of these smaller CO2 based launchers. They pack way more power. They're HPA powered, which I love, and I really want to see them continue to evolve and become more compact. But when it comes to your defense, and you want to carry something on body, I don't think they're there yet. They have a lot more to do in terms of making those smaller and more practical for everyday use. So right now it's CO2, but I really do have high hopes on HPA. I'll be talking about HPA based pistol launchers a lot more in the future, so stay tuned. And in your home defense, if you don't have Mango there to protect you, you need to find something that'll work for you. So everybody, find something that works. Take care of yourself and your family, and I will talk to you again on the next one.
Mango, are you eating?
No, Mango.
No.